there everybody, it's markcrilley. I'm back with another video. This is part one of a three-part series of no time-lapse videos. It's been a while since I did this, but I'm going to do a single illustration over the span of three different videos, and I'm not going to use any time-lapse the whole time. You're going to see the real drawing process. Now, I put in a few vertical lines here and a few diagonal lines to help me with the perspective of this drawing that I'm going to be doing today. My idea is to draw a sort of futuristic speeder, kind of like what you saw in Star Wars, you know, it's like a motorcycle except it has no wheels, that kind of a thing. And in order to get the perspective right, I wanted to have these lines in place, and I thought it would be kind of boring if you watched me drawing a bunch of lines with a ruler. So that part I put in advance, but the rest of it, everything you're going to see me doing here today is, as I said, going to be done all real time. We have given old man time-lapse a vacation. Don't believe him! He's got me tied to a chair here in the corner! Free, somebody free old man time-lapse. But yeah, you know, normally, for those of you who don't understand this ridiculous inside joke that I'm making, normally I use a lot of time-lapse in my videos to sort of keep them short. It's sort of, I'm kind of in a tug of war a lot between trying to get a good final result, and normally that requires hours and hours of drawing time, and I don't want to make an hours and hours long video, so I end up time-lapsing through lots of bits. And I thought, you know, just for the next 3 weeks or so, I would appease the people who don't like time-lapse, who want to see the entire drawing process in all its slow-paced glory, and so that's what I'm going to be doing today. Now, this is not the first time that I've done this. This is actually the third series that I've done, that is to say, multi-video series. I think the first two that I did had 4 videos, and this time I thought I'd experiment limiting it to just 3. 4 maybe I felt even was going a little bit too far in terms of assuming that people could maintain interest in a single illustration over a period of a whole month. You gotta be kidding. You're not even interested in the drawing by the end of the month, much less the people watching the video. And so yeah, we're gonna try shortening the span of time just a little bit, but otherwise it's gonna be fairly similar to what I did with these other videos, which is to say, I'm going to do the pencils this week. It's going to be, I'm going to try my best to complete the whole illustration in terms of the penciling by the end of this first video. And then next week I'm going to do watercolors. That's going to be a little tricky in terms of no time-lapse. I may have to hit the pause button next week a few times to let the paint dry, you know, because watercolor is notoriously slow drying, but otherwise I think that will hold true to my promise of no time-lapse. I'll just sort of pause while the paint dries. But anyway, that would be the second video, and then the third will be inking and maybe what I call the final polishing stage, just doing the final touches, that adding details and so forth that make the illustration the best it can be. And by definition, that means that I did something differently with those 4 videos last time. I'm compressing something. Maybe I did the, oh, can you hear the dog barking down there? This shows the benefits of real-time drawing. I don't know if you can hear it. I closed the door just in case. We do have a corgi now. Some of you in a previous video may have seen that we bought ourselves a corgi. That was actually last year, last September. We added to the Crilley household with a wonderful little corgi named Joy. I don't know why I'm talking about our corgi, just because I heard her barking. I don't know if anyone else did. Actually, you know what I should do is add just a little bit of perspective lines across the front here that will help me get the a unified system of perspective across the front, because I have this idea for the front of the vehicle to be a sort of open grill kind of a thing. And that means that we begin to establish some diagonal lines that are, it's like we've got an elevated point of view, where we're sort of looking down at it a bit. Now, I don't know if I'm going to be able to stick to my goal. What I wanted to do is to have each one of these videos be no more than 15 minutes. And I even have a timer running over here to show myself a little over 5 minutes now, just to try to move things along. And maybe if I just adopt a slightly looser style, I can hold to that. I don't know why, but I thought 15 minutes is not a bad length of time for a video, and I'm not going to be super strict about, oh, that's it, 15 minutes, I have to throw down the pencil. But I think when I hit 15 minutes, I'm going to be telling myself, okay, Crilley, time to wrap it up. Let's get going with this. Let's get a move on. I suppose the best thing for me to talk about during this first video is about imaginary vehicle design, or sort of like fantasy design, and how sometimes you're inventing, like right now, I'm inventing this sci-fi vehicle. And of course, since it's fantasy, there is kind of nobody to tell me that I'm doing it wrong. It's all based on my own instinct as a creative person. But that being said, I still think even when you're in the realm of fantasy, it's helpful to have little bits that seem like they could be real. I mean, that you're not just like, drawing any bizarre shape that comes to mind, but you're trying to come up with shapes and components that will remind you of like a real motorcycle or whatever. That's always my goal, is to give it, even when it's a fantasy, imaginary thing, to give it some sort of air of authenticity by way of the various structures and having them look as if they would fit together properly. You could almost imagine buying a model kit, hopefully by the time I'm done with this thing. And a lot of this comes down to having some knowledge of perspective. Maybe I'll link to my perspective videos. I think I ended up finally making just like a playlist of all of my perspective videos. I think it's very helpful in terms of drawing scenery, but also drawing imaginary objects, having some sort of sense of how perspective works can really make a big difference in terms of the imaginary thing that you've drawn reading as a real life object, having some sort of feeling of solidity to it. Now, I figure this, and I've decided it's going to be a female person who's riding this vehicle. And I figure she needs some sort of footrest kind of an area. Maybe it also helps adjust the speed or something. Brakes, ignition, the carburetor. And that's why I'm putting in a slightly diagonal thing here. But again, see this line here, it has to sort of agree with that line there by the rules of perspective. So yeah, I will link in the description of this video to my playlist showing you all my different perspective videos. I suppose this would have to be a 2-point. Yeah, I think this would be a 2-point perspective, but not in a very extreme way, because these lines are very gradually tapering off, and they would eventually reach at one point way over there in the distance, and I suppose these also would reach a point off in the distance there. But maybe this is a good example of what you would call super subtle 2-point perspective, which is to say you barely see the tapering of these lines. This line looks more or less parallel to this line, just very slightly tapering. And in fact, I believe there are Japanese systems like traditional Japanese systems of perspective in which the lines don't taper at all. Now I see that I have already reached 10 minutes, so we'll see what happens with Crilly's goal of keeping all of these videos to just 15. I'm beginning to realize that it was a lofty goal. But as I said, I might give myself just a little cheat time. Maybe we'll shoot for 17 or 18, something like that. That being said, you know, some of these details I think I can get to in a subsequent video, in terms of really getting every detail of the ship. Might make sense to do it that way anyway, because you sometimes can spend a lot of time adding details, and then the watercolor comes along and obliterates all those details. So, yeah, maybe I'll just give in on that accord. Anyway, I hope you guys are all enjoying this, those of you who don't like time-lapse. I just hope you're pleased with yourselves. See what you've made me do. There is this sort of warring factions among my audience. Some people who really do want to see the entire process without any time-lapse at all, and then other people who are like, this is boring, this is going on for too long. And maybe the law of YouTube that I should have learned a long time ago is that you can't please everybody. You never will. You will always leave somebody dissatisfied. Let's give her a sort of Han Solo style vest. Now, some of you safety-minded individuals will be like, she's not wearing a helmet. Crilly, how dare you? You are corrupting the youth of today with your crazy, helmetless motorcycle futuristic vehicle riders. Yeah, sorry about that. I just didn't really want to do the helmet thing. Maybe she lives on a spongy planet where you cannot be hurt when you fall off of a vehicle, even flying at the fastest of speeds. Yeah, that's it. That was my plan right from the start. So yeah, let me know what you think about this first video in the series. And have you ever tried to invent a vehicle just from your imagination? I think one of the cool things about the Star Wars movies is they committed so much to those vehicles. They all looked quite believable. You could tell that they didn't go with the first design that popped into their heads. They really labored over having each vehicle have its own distinct look. I've kind of talked about this before, about how I always loved the sort of lived-in, weather-beaten look of all the Star Wars vehicles. And indeed, I want to try to do that for this video, eventually give this vehicle that she's flying a sort of a weather-beaten look. I think the watercolor will be good for that, because watercolor does tend to get kind of grainy. Let's give her a boot. At least she can have safety boots so as not to injure her lower calves while flying this thing. Crilly, you are running out of things to say. Why don't you just admit it? I think we're doing okay in terms of my goal of the 15-minute videos, because I don't know if I have to have all of this 100% done in order to start applying watercolor. And maybe this will be a good example of how you can, you don't have to have a completely finished illustration before you start adding watercolor. As long as you've got the basics in place, you can maybe just sort of jump in and start solidifying things a little bit, as I will next week with the watercolor, and then allow that to determine what happens to some of your details. Well, I can see right now that I'm not going to completely meet this 15-minute deadline, but as I said, hopefully I can get within striking distance of it. I think we got the basics. Let's connect this steering mechanism to the vehicle. That would help. to have the two things connected to one another. And yeah, maybe I'll just spend these next couple of minutes firming things up as we race past the 15-minute deadline. You know, in my previous attempts at a no time-lapse video, I will be honest with you, I haven't been 100% satisfied with the quality of the finished illustration. Many of the illustrations that you see in my videos were done over a period of about 3 hours. And in those videos, even the 4-part videos, and I was trying not to spend too much time on each video, there just sort of compromises were made. And you know, again, I guess I'll link to those other ones. If you enjoy this one, if you enjoy seeing somebody do a drawing pretty much from scratch, all in real time, go ahead and check out those earlier videos in the series. But I'll be honest with you, I'm not 100% satisfied with the finished result of the artwork in either of those videos. And my goal this time is to have an illustration that I can look at in the end and say, hey, you know what? I like it. I'm pleased with it. This is good work. And my theory is maybe to go with just a looser approach. Okay, so I'm just going to do a little bit of darkness here to help myself see for next week where I'm going to be applying the darker areas in watercolor. But I do think it is time to start winding things down. Thank you all for watching this video. I sincerely hope that you will come back next week to see the watercolor process. I think that'll be fun, just to see me trying to add some texture and so forth. And then, of course, the week after that is going to be the inking and polishing, final touches kind of a process. But I think it is time now to lay down the pencil for this week, and I really sincerely hope that you will all come back to watch the remaining 2 videos in this series. But I think we've reached the end of everyone's patience. So it's time for me to lay down this pencil. I want to thank you all for watching this video. I really hope you enjoyed it. And I'll be back with another one real soon.